Hello. Yeah. YouTube grants me well. Since founding, all formal takes on the law by individuals not as law, including as the worst forced patients and criminal, collusion with them, not just criminally foreign influence, fact, human nature, quality aspects of nature, not just tactically delusions raw, not just that used remotely with all it caused to screen that, but to screen with all that and what it causes used remotely, collusions with. That which no one wanted collusions with, but exceptions were made for them. Where and how the sum, value, and difference of the colonial laws and of their syntax, defenses of it, they were criminally used remotely, and therefore, but also again at other locations, increasingly well at those locations, for increasingly different, additional reasons. So Facebook and Twitter before the sale, they've been influenced by the intelligence community that were involved reporting leading up to the World Trade Center attack. Interstates have roles. Our countries have invisible, but still discernible by nature, reasons why we are bound, individuals, grouped, and together species volume. But we have other than the hyper-evidential being allowed to be spoken about, to use for evidence. How they got away with it is also evidence. But we have to appreciate the hyper-evidential. And so this breaching method, before America's founders were born, before the founders of modern countries were born, it had already employed the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, only capable of being blamed on other things, others, or selves, and not defended, even when correctly. Where defenses of that are simultaneously defenses of quality aspects in nature as fact, human nature as value, as criminal insidiousness, as defined by nature, however. See native dream. Yeah. In other words, simply distinctly, Native Americans are prevented. The quality and fact human nature, time treatment, etc. In other words, they're forced to entertain what can't be entertained and simultaneously afford the revelations by what is actually reported. See, now one reported true because everyone's using values of research. The word research was employed by the breaching method as the difference between the different countries measured and maintained by themselves. Self-value not wanting to be but used remotely as syntax nature, blaming other things others ourselves where the breaching method caused those things. Like slavery. Through our schools, other things others ourselves are blamed. And that in each age of fact, each age of correlation nature is shown by the identity of hyperrelativity, which is also shown if we allow honest science. There are connections between the campuses made for us. So increasingly, the breaching method measures and maintains its name and uses with other foreign names left out and or brought up. Exactly where and how that can be used and was and is used effectively to keep where the overt criminal enterprises and private ones and the branches of government and or the exceptions tied to them and or their family, their neighbors, and will involve where everyone speaks through other people, other things, other instances, and have where communications is is stayed tactical ulterior than what it is in others pretended with passions and emotions against any voice that tries to use the hyper evidential. So only non-integrity of science has spoken for what caused slavery. And that has let state roles with the torture and the extortion and the other parts of it that are hyper additional. It's not just slavery. Second, system entertains that. Also, it is important to understand how they have black, white, Caucasian listed when they ask our races. Our race, different contexts. And it's also hard to tell what people really put because of how the interbranch were used remotely, effectively, originally instilled. There's little magic tricks in here. Just like there are magic tricks that a magician can make it look like it saw someone in half from the box, or different, make someone disappear, something like that. With perception, even easier magic tricks with facts. Used at locations online, self-value too, because that's where they're used remotely. So this breaching method only allow other things, others, ourselves to be blamed for where it is, and you that manifest in the fact-sheet nature quality aspects. And nature itself has criminal insidiousness. The only way people will be able to defend their logic with debates is self-valuing. As styles, needs, and nature, self-valuing how the past had precedents and statutes and readings of that and uses of it that were also used singularly by the breaching method, criminally foreign influence. And those were additional apparent motivation and roles with names, including the worst predators. They have victims advocates, all sides in criminal and civil cases, roles at other locations, those same locations, roles also with prisons and forensic locations involved with the interbranch. Only 3 branches of government effectively kept pretending others simultaneously, no. But psychopaths, only 3 branches of government. You have to go by what they say individually grouped and together that they deny. There are supposed to be accountability that we don't have to. We can say things and stuff. They have it backwards. Part of the way you get it, they do that is because of how they assign identities, names, like black and white, as representatives of that, as groups that have voiced for them their difference imposed on others. Because nature shows black pupils, white survives, and exceptions in exception nature. No, a giraffe doesn't have, the giraffe has black pupils and white survives. But the giraffe is also a species body with 3 volumes. Individual, group, difference, different slash s. This breaching method makes people understate things and overstate them. And not even capable, allowed to try using the simultaneous as a scientific evidence properly. They have all sides of cases. They go back and forth with subject treatments, criminally foreign influence, used to measure and maintain roles, leaving out the finite details while making them up, leaving out what is actually simultaneously recorded and or the value of that. leaving out what the value of what actually came first. So the intelligence community has roles with kids where they have fake identities, where they're on the reason they pretend to speak about crimes and be for crimes and things like that because they're unmarked police forms. They're not allowed to be with their own human identity as distinctly from the victims, as the victims of the breaching method, but distinctly from regular citizens. And that's distinctly based on if you're affected by this at the suburbs level, which are tactically denatured before our founders were born. To cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that were effectively employed, blamed on other things, others, or ourselves. That was effectively used and is effectively used by the breaching method to measure and maintain self-value delusions with itself. So there are investigators' roles with the intelligence community since they were kids, with adults and their families on and off the news media locations. They have roles with a method that is stacking fake things in databases, that is making use of how the nature, knew you're supposed to communicate to kids. The branches of the government are manifest as the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the political branch, because of how the Trinity is manifest. The Trinity demonstrated by nature, by its identity of relationship to itself, and by the only increasing value of that. That is also inseparable from the smallest part of each body. Yeah. So in other words, the intelligence community includes the branches of government, but also includes, like, on off the state judicial branch officers, on off the state prison officers. Also, part of the reasons why off is relative, at off next to locations, even the people next to everyone. Because simultaneously, physics, metaphysics, and identity as three bound sciences are also being exploited multi-front by the same singular method, which is again recorded as hyper-evidence, as that which is hyper-evidential, being left out because other things, others, ourselves, are being communicated. Where and how our founders told us to communicate about the breaching method. Our founders demonstrated for us to communicate about how they didn't have free speech because the breaching method would come back and measure what their motives were for saying this or that. That's because they said something. It wasn't just lack of free speech. It was lack of it denied too simultaneously, or that person was sentenced. Leaving out the breaching method, leaving out a whole bunch of other countries on off the sciences locations too. Here and there are differences. Good and bad, used to hide how they get, use truths for lies. So a whole bunch of people, since they were kids, make fake exceptions. Make some people they're not at all. This is an identity theft, fraud, slander method against every single person simply distinctly, and sustain that. So Facebook has roles with Connecticut courts with their Facebook pages, where they've been planting fabricated audio and video evidences and fake motivations and fake legitimate uses of legitimate right to life uses. They've been planting for changing the outcomes of cases at the same time where people, The intelligence community, like former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, has roles with a whole bunch of people at Central Connecticut State University who have roles with the Connecticut media and where they have a whole bunch of different countries. So they hide, you know, where nature is demonstrating, for example, where our individuals grouped in together, independent and value as independence and or as unity simultaneously. For its system, it has conjunction to what we should say and could say. Tactical ulterior from what is being and has been pretended, legitimate or honest voicings. It is honesty using truth as lies, and to screen that which is behind the worst negative validation progressions, acts, and agents. For example, uses of reports on fentanyl, regardless even if it was made up, even if the witch trials are made up. These things have roles with the torture slash extortion slash the slavery method that had remote uses of the identities of the branches of exceptions of government tied to them, military also with foreign Kuwaiti military, all different militaries involved with locations next to Central Connecticut State University in Britain. They had been planting evidences located next to their location with their family members' intimate ties to them. As roles and names timed the roles with overt criminal enterprises. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, private ones, people through time with whiting forensics. They have been at crime scenes roles with the worst patients and criminals. And then afterwards to force them not to hide and the pretended collusions making up finite details and simultaneous ones. So also names on off the state corrections officers have roles of wire crimes and people on off the state judicial branch officers in Wethersfield. And note the corrections officers is right on the town line of Wethersfield, Hartford. Those spots are involved with police chiefs, past police chiefs through time involved with the same house and locations where they came from. With the new people that was before they were there. And then before the new people on both sides of me came, there's a Dillon family involved with this. And with this campus's police forms, timed roles of work criminal enterprises and private ones. They're hiding behind how they have roles with leaderships of Afghanistan and Korean families. They have also roles with teachers I have. Never had a conversation with someone with a quick thing they use that as fake things. Where everyone's forced to speak through others and they're putting fake things in databases as collusion /S, and then they're needing to hide that relative to also where and how used remotely. Therefore, what is recorded actually are all sides in private and civil cases, and victims advocates, and the news at the same time. Relative courts like new campuses in Sandy Hook, not just the kids' campuses, but fire campuses, and there's a prison campus there that has roles with people on the child defender registry, that also women judges and women with the courts roles, where they have the possession of their difference being applied, where they have people have differences, like what they call debate or argument. It's being led criminally foreign influence and tactically delusions raw. So they've been using wire and mail crime methods roles. The branches of the government individually grouped in together. They've been getting away with it per connections between people at campuses that are made up, mixed with the ones where they're using truth as lies. In other words, they're putting fake things in databases. Now these are people also with remote uses of the sense and sensibilities of the actors. Now they're going to pretend they speak about free speech. Oh, but that's just because it's a job, and if that's your job, and that's the thing, They're trying to keep that job open. You won't get hired because of these companies are making demonstrations because they're fabricating, they're making the whole array, the fake size. People are getting involved with other people's business. The intelligence community has been leading people to the intelligence community has a whole bunch of countries involved with psychiatry, with mental, what they call mental diagnosis and symptoms. They're making them up because they're fabricating whole conversations and ties between kids and adults, and including one of the doctors, ones with badges. A whole bunch of people with Hartford Hospital involved with military police, foreign and domestic. Also KKK, black, and Confederate flag themes, switching names and sequences, federal evidence is crime, falsified police reports rules, identity theft, fraud, slander rules, with names involved with other countries since they were kids, regardless of their senators, these guys that represent, in other words, Luigi Guerrero, I never had anything to do with in my life. His sister took a picture of her sitting near me one time, and never had anything to do with it. She asked to borrow my things. And her husband, I don't remember met in my life. In other words, they have people planting evidences increasingly. And then they're pretending it's perfect. Well, we're upset because you brought up our names or something like that. That's why they're supposed to put things on paper. See, the branch of the government use predicate acts methods where they lie about their motivation. That's why they're supposed to get on paper, follow mandated law, putting us. Hartford Hospital has a whole bunch of personal ties also with Brian Silver, also recorded and involved with a whole bunch of people with the Connecticut District Court, Hartford courts, and the Britain Superior Court that influence people on off the campuses in West Hartford and stuff like that, with West Hartford parks and stuff like that. Sequence shift rule, identity theft, fraud, slander rules, drugs and medicines crimes with judges and prosecutors, their family members, military, foreign, and domestic, with those use of those locations. So there's a Joseph Dennis. He brought up John Dennis, and there are people all along Route 175 and at the locations involved with identity theft, fraud, slander. Then they have to pretend passions and emotions relative to where and how there are uses of overt criminal enterprises and of private ones, and of the interbranch at the same time needing to hide life progressions of the worst organized crime bodies. They're just that. All sides of involved with the witness protection program and the sources where the FBI has criminally foreign influence roles within that corners near me. They have roles with Russians also, with medical and mental health and psychiatry, all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes with courts and medical locations and fire departments. And rights to lie because they have roles with a whole bunch of different countries, but they don't have the right to lie. They leave out the value of what comes first, which is including how they pretend passions and emotions, and or how they stay calmness as psychopaths. For the dictionary definition of it, not even a doctor will delineate their delusions from the criminally foreign influence, factory nature, quality aspects of nature. Increasingly self-valuing takes on the value of voting. They can't defend themselves and afford finite evil. In other words, our founders left us to demonstrate how both the North and South had roles with slavery, to understand this and to communicate, and how they would pretend that people have to speak about the language of what amendment is about what, leaving out the preaching method, leaving out the value of what actually came first. A whole bunch of people with whiting forensics have roles in the past with predicate acts with facts, with names at locations increasingly being brought up to me, increasingly tied to mayors and their intimate and business ties and locations ties. Next to the state, next to the people increasingly with the Board of Education, where the FBI has roles with attorney generals, increasingly they can't speak for law effectively, pretending other used remotely by a breaching method. Fix the news predicate acts with facts with the principal child offender. There's a principal deemed that New Britain Superior Court had rape threats and other passion crimes rules with people in New Britain, also in West Hartford locations before the World Trade Center attack. They forged and switched names and falsified police reports. They used methods of putting no charge with no writing and switching officer names and making confessions, where and how the breaching method uses confessions distinctly from the religions that are about partially how the sciences became criminally foreign influence. We are not being led by the identity of the hyper simultaneous, for actually honest science. We're not being led by honest science, and they are pretending other offensively. How they are getting away with it has to do with the value of understanding how other things, others, and ourselves were blamed for the breaching method. So I'm going to read you a whole bunch of fake conversations with the Alehi family and others with judges and prosecutors personally involved with them criminally foreign influence in private and civil cases from background, as well as also with the hallways of the courts, where they plant fake motivations and roles with tricks that have manifest where readings of statutes have been simultaneously criminally foreign influence simultaneously, tactically delusions wrought and simultaneously that being having been used remotely. Not just there, but at other locations. And that the difference of that is also being having been used remotely better than perfectively to that causing problems and that better than effectively being and having been blamed on other things others ourselves. As voices in nature increasingly valuing that having been since founding with precedents and with statutes, formal and other, as collusion. Let someone try to debate that the suburbs are tactically denatured, let alone the cities. Their finite detailed treatment they're not going to be able to afford with how nature tells us, communicates, demonstrates for us to speak for the finite. They take examples of evidence online, they're also switching evidences, where and how they have criminally foreign influence readings of precedents of statutes. There's a person with the name Bayer, a woman, I believe she has male tied to her, also with that name. And the name Peruta is our people involved with, like Russians have roles with Americans, all other countries with medical locations and fire locations, where they have doctors and medical databases where they're faking conversations with people and their family members. This is also relative to where and to how MSNBC, Fox News, and CNN have reported, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, where they do good reporting and where their sources, they're going to pretend other their sources. But they demonstrate, reported, confessed, confirmed roles with the intelligence community on off Central Connecticut State University, on off Paul Manafort Drive, on off Iwo Jima, to be on the other side, on the northern side, and on off the all sides of Central Connecticut State University in Britain has roles with names on off that campus, also on off my street 2 times since I was a kid. Also with a whole bunch of people from other locations were exploiting the phenomena of where and how, for example, people in the cities and in the suburbs, there are people that live near them when they were young that they know of, or not at all, even though they were right near them, for reasons distinctly from how the same thing is in the suburbs. Could be someone in your own age went to the campus, you don't even know if they went to your campus or not. They're planting fake things in databases as semi-part of it. Federal evidence crime method, way worse. Semi-off of it. And at all of the locations, See, this is manifest where now they have. So they can't recruit. They use like things like recruiting, positive things for the branch of the government, exceptions tied to that. Pretend they're legitimate. They have all positive treatments, all negative treatments, all neutrality within their definitions of neutrality, designed to leave out how the identity is there with neutrality and another system. I mean, the rest of the system that would just be, and they're forcing collusions with illusions and delusions. For how also this method has everyone forced, they have descriptions of instances with everyone around. This is a method that has the kids and the parents attached to fake conversations with themselves, and that increasingly, and with others, fake ties to others. Our intelligence community with other nations has roles with also overt criminal enterprises and private ones with identity theft, fraud, slander. They need to pretend others. It's not legitimate truths used for lies and reasons. While they're pretending other, while confessing that they have roles with identity theft, fraud, slander methods, property theft methods. In readings of law, creating foreign influence, and readings of value. Value and identity have relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. Because just like the other species bodies have its identity of relationship to itself and its identity of volume, and no increasing value of that. That's why the giraffe has black pupils, whites of eyes, distinctly from ourselves. We have black pupils, whites of eyes, exception nature. We could be systems other than Earth's method of causing positive value nature, progressions, acts, and means out of nowhere. But that's only going to be criminal insidiousness natures of evolution to get fruits and gifts and means out of nowhere. I said it's going to be criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments, identity treatments, and negative treatments. So the identity of relativity is real, and it comes with the identity of hyperrelativity. And it is hypernative here. And that is why the value of every modern country's native population is increasingly valuable to see how distinctly their name and human volume is forced tool by a breaching method to keep us how we are syntactically manifest. Self-value roles with systems tactically ulterior from its own, the one that has us this way manifest. Individual group differences and species difference. But those and non-difference. It is showing us its distinct, non-distinct, and hyper-simultaneous identity relationship to itself. That identity of hyper-simultaneous, that is hyper-invisible but still discernible. It is also a conjunction to each of the sciences the way they can't afford to discern. As the languages can't teach themselves properly if they don't teach about how a piece of their identity is in the other languages. It is more theirs than their own is their own. Because of how it completes its identity. Not complete, it's making more of its identity. One identity of value/value progression generated caused its identity of relationship to itself and the only increasing value of that generated matter. This is what nature shows us as most probable and practical and demonstrable. How to describe and think about or theorize what happened to cause life. It is also more probable that if there is life beyond Earth's special difference with space existence is being or has been caused as like bacteria or whatever form it is, like bacteria, things like that, because our value leaving. Earth's a special difference, our special difference through us. We have been systems tactical ulterior from it that is also positive unto itself. Where and how it has Earth within a special difference. Simultaneously as the course of why we have black pupils, whites of eyes, like the giraffes. How we have hyper additionally different color eyes. We have exceptions. We have the same as ourselves. We have the same exact eyes. Black people's whites of eyes in the part around it. But we have that distinct, non-distinct, but it's distinct, non-distinct, and hyper-simultaneous identity relationship to itself. Just like as all the parts of our body, all the parts of your body have semi-nature relationship, not just to a complete identity, not just to the sequence, the group sequence differences, and similar, but to the identity of value progression perfect. Nothing could be negative. Even if you wanted to entertain systems that are going to entertain crazy laws, tactical theory is going to demonstrate negative value nature progressions acts in nature. Force, space, nature, transfer. Nature being a word to define the identity of relativity simultaneously to positive and negative that identity has. Distinctly from value, but also non-distinctly because the value of its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that is coupling increasingly. I mean, it's connecting with, and while it is coming from, while it is connecting with, it's coming from itself and to itself as value perfect. Here, we can be systems other, and will demonstrate force, space, nature, transfer. The value of our identity as a hyper invisible but still discernible, as a semi-nature relationship to its body, its body's complete identity of relationship to itself, and no increasing value of that. That which is the identity of space / existence. So the news also, where they do good reporting on it, they reported, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they're being coached by their interbranch sources to also pretend, also who have roles with the ad placements, including things pretended to be legitimate public service announcements and things like that, where locations are being and haven't been used in databases. They're putting fake things. They have roles of all sides in criminal and civil cases, and with the exceptions tied to that. And they would have figured that out how had they followed the law as actually supposed to be read. And we have to observe the value of the only increasing value of valuing syntactically the hyper invisible but still discernible. Because it exists. Theories on relativity are affront, criminally and theoretically, to what is actually science. And the value of the special relativity is differentially especially valued. But this requires a quality of fact human nature that has offensively been prevented. preemptively rather, actively, and increasingly relative to where and how they are shown, needs to hide what is actually reported value of their judgment, of their opinions and of their convictions, and of their theories, and of their readings of statutes, and of precedents. People who are lawyers, people who aren't lawyers, people who are judges, prosecutors who aren't, state's attorneys, their conversations with this with MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News. They're reporting, including the wire, they're being forced to include with wire crime methods that are gotten away with as collusions with the worst natures of things. People that they're trying to plant, in other words. The people countering violent acts and things like that of all different arrays and speaking about the difference of it with our cities and towns and suburbs throughout the world. They're leaving out how their locations and names and their logic is rolls with the relativity of what I caught them doing with each age of campus. Little facts, tricks with facts. And so they've been using wire and mail crank method rolls with the private tied to the interbranch. The interbranch blames other things. They force pretending someone has to be blamed with instances or to describe the subject's involvement. They're pretending that someone has to be blamed because they're leaving out. They're doing it even when they're using truth for life because they're leaving out the foreign involvements with themselves since they were kids. A whole bunch of people in the Britain Superior Court have roles with people who have roles with wire crimes when I was in grammar school that were in other, not even in my classes, trying to make fake exception real quick on campus but not inside. And then you never see them again. Those fake exceptions, they can't be honest about it now because those are the ones increasingly tied to and as names roles with the World Trade Center attack. And the court next to it too, as ones with a whole bunch of people from associated with Connecticut District Court who have roles of wire crimes with my people from my grammar school. I never even saw in the grammar school, and mayors from my town are involved with it, and with the principal dean, with more people involved with the intelligence community, foreign and domestic military, with shopping centers, malls, next to parks, religious spots. Mark Viola has roles with people that went to a religious spot on the Route 3. Eric Jensen, a Kerr family. There's Al Nielsen. I've never had a conversation with Al Nielsen. This is one of the people, O'Brien family, demonstrated is involved with many people. His family, as executive police for a family with Hartford courts through time, people with the news, people with Weathersfield police, retired and standing, people with the name Mendez, falsifying police reports, roles putting fake things in campuses, databases with people on off the state judicial branch offices. The Morrow family involved with them also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with a Rod Reed with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and then with untimely death roles, with investigations, the investigators who have roles with that, also with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and then with the principal child offenders campus, John Bean. Also, the news had roles with that, and they have roles with name uses of stories next to the campus. And they took a picture of a girl who I believe is one of the ones who was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the name Cuddy. Lance Cuddy is I never even had him slung around campuses. Never had a conversation with my life. Trying to make a fake exception, knowing me with people named Sullivan, involved with the intelligence community, with the FBI and other agencies, and courts, families in Hartford. For when I was since I was a kid, they were involved with names next to campuses and medical communities attaching, and judges attaching little kids to fake locations with their own family members, with uses of their roles, with all natures of relationships between their own and other people's. They're lying about their motivations. They do little tricks by having people pretend, if people are at a party and you're tricked to go there with someone, they need to lie about it, pretend that you know, other than they're lying with passions and emotions about the kids' motivation. They're leaving out their roles of predicate acts with facts. Since kids are kids, you guys are recorded communicating to little kids that are consciously psychopaths, where you speak about the relativity of black and white. Now, see, it's sickly, distinctly against everyone, and you're forced to be a part of the science as employed by the breaching method to effectively to measure and maintain, but also through our own, through other motivations in nature, needs, interests, and have those having been, while needing to hide that and its relativity to their syntax nature, it goes with the wire and mail crime methods. Connecticut courts have wire and mail crime methods with the executive branch, with forensics locations names, with all sides of private and civil cases. These are people lying and they have the word, they have people with the name Cololo who brought up the word maturity, because they've been pretending fake things in the classrooms with a police chief Centron, and 1 years ago, and involved with their intimate families tied to them too. And that corner where Mazzucato Bakery is now, from years before that, a whole bunch of people involved with that corner through time, intercities with New Britain Superior Court with the intelligence, New Britain campus with the intelligence community, and Trinity College with the intelligence community. Also filming things after they know other was recorded first. Then they bring things before, they go back inside civil and criminal, and they're leaving out exceptions, making them up, and leaving out what's actually recorded, where they have remote uses of all investigations investigated. To an extent, we have easy discernment of this, where they make opinions about what uh, Jim Crow laws were and are about, let alone slavery. So, let alone the tea tax, the Boston Tea Party, let alone what that was about. And let alone the difference in that. They make each other fight with each other. They're not even each other. They're not a self. They're a self as a body, as a name. Tactical terrier from how nature has individual group difference /S and species body difference assigned. Control of the mind. So, all kinds of mental health corruption in their database. A whole bunch of people tied to a Mark Violet are involved with and a Leahy family. The Leahy family pretended conversations with me as a doctor. They have their whole family, men and women in a Leahy family, even ones with the same name, though, two Brendan Leahys. Roles with various courts, judges, and their family members with drugs and medicines, crimes with kids. Tactical delusions, not just regular delusions. I'm not even a doctor. I'll delineate the delusions from their criminally foreign influence, factor, nature, quality aspects of nature, soul. Their roles were putting acts on my street with child defenders on and off campuses connected. They put it also with the names next to it. They brought in a Pierce family. Oh, but there's multiple families with the name Pierce that were influenced to where they could take a picture near me and lie about what came first. They're being coached to it, in other words, by the people involved with the former director of the FBI, with various natures of federal criminals and organized crime bodies, timed roles with illusions before they got caught on my campuses, and with and as the names that are roles at other ones. With that, because they're making vertical and horizontal illusions, making it look like They're speaking about truth, who's the truth or who's a liar as liar, in other words, and that they can't follow mandated law. They've been fabricating falsified police reports, and they've been roles with all sides of them, criminal and civil cases. Judges switching names, prosecutors switching names, roles. The identities of the court. A whole bunch of people tied to a Colombo family and an O'Brien family have roles with wire crime methods when I was a kid with people in their classrooms I don't even know. People tied to a former mayor Gold, increasingly tied to a whiting forensics with strangers that made confessions tied to him and demonstrations tied to him. I don't know them. They tried to pretend other in the databases when I was in sixth grade. Has something to do with the Czech Casper, also with the names next to the state capitol that have federal evidence of crimes with the former director of the FBI and with child offenders that are attaching kids to fake ties to other kids on campuses and with police chiefs' families and with former director of the FBI's co-defendants and their family members. Also involved with Dearborn Street in Newington and locations next to them with all kind of doctors and medical families involved with the same house, with wire crimes and drug domestic crimes with them, with child offenders on the child offender registry, and still with leaderships to the kids then and now. They got away with it because they've been fabricating police reports. So if you watch MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News, simply distinctly, they're making the same subject treatments repeatedly right through elections. They're pretending value that voting means what it doesn't, because they're already shown. You can't just call them up. They have a people. They have a hear no evil, see no evil. Predicate acts delivery system method, a crimes method that also has been pretending to be against crimes, and that's measured and maintained. Or they're trying to counter that too, with their collusions with it. Because really, it's the syntax possession and the array. They need the array, and they need the fakes and the exceptions, collusions, fake. They need the appearance of justice, criminally foreign influence, and pretending other. And they're increasingly self-valued to having been employed by the breaching method. What employed? What was employed by those crazy laws against everyone? Prejudice. Of course, prejudice is, in other words, everyone's hurt by the law. You're gonna be a fake. It's gonna hurt everyone. Everyone's gonna be prejudiced to themselves. Now, as a self, attack the little terror from the nature system. So when we have that right formal first, others value. They're all posers. They have to offend. They're showing needs to offensively pretend. They need to believe that the name of the government, the name of title should mean what it doesn't. They increasingly have to self-value that having been used to hurt people until they're adults and capable of communicating properly with the police at the same time, police not capable, and or also because they're showing us tactically fabricated, examples of everything. Not one proper, just the slightest things have things tied to it. All kinds of mass shootings have roles with all kinds of other subjects. There's effective conscious uses of people smoking mass shootings. Let's take it as one thing. It's manifest with different psychopaths, and it has relativity to schools, and they're adapting because they have the roles with the uses of the schools for predicate acts with facts method, identity theft, fraud, slander method. That is one of the things that is sickly distinctly against everyone, including our founders. They communicated us for us to understand about how the only reason people had means to communicate, to protest. Rolls with T tax. while leaving out slavery that was entrenched north and south. Just because of the forced, the counter extortion of our founders and the limits of it. The strengths of it were based on once they did that, everyone was measured and maintained what they say. Your collusion is pretending other, or you're sentenced to hurt through your own. That's what slavery laws are about. People who debate that need to, they have to pretend passions and emotions as psychopaths. Let them debate. Let them put on paper their name of any candidate of any party who says that New York City was free. We're going to examine the torture slash extortion slash slavery method, criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, and of uses of rights to life relevant to this. Yeah! Shouldn't have to, so I'm going to have to read fake conversations that a Leahy family had with me, and the Lombardo family. And I apologize to my neighbors, because that's why I wanted to do things on paper. They won't do things on paper because they need to pretend they're using, people want the right to privacy, but they're using that truth for a lie to measure and maintain self-valued roles with sequence shifts. A whole bunch of people tied to modern pastry with a Mayano family and with a Fred Grisette involved with Weathersfield police chiefs retired and intimate ties to them, have roles with predicate acts on my street and campuses I didn't go to, as with names with roles with Weathersfield police chief families and military families, foreign and domestic. As time grows with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, when I was a kid from a background, then if you speak about it, it's also part of the method where it makes it look like you know them. Then the fake exceptions, the same thing. So they have probate court judges, especially sick with the elderly homes and with the medical locations, and with forensic locations. A whole bunch of names tied to the same house. Near me, that the Weathersfield police brought up the name Colo with the name Sullivan. As one's roles with the whole, they confess they have at least 3 or more officers that switch and use the name McGee, but they only have one name, McGee. Where they've been fabricating audio and video also with a Thomas Dillon, and Anna Dillon, and a Kevin Dillon, also involved in identity theft, fraud, slanders with a whole bunch of people tied to the former director of the FBI, with drugs and medicines crimes with little kids. On off campuses, putting fake things with doctors, fake ties to doctors, fake natures tied to them and their kids. A whole bunch of families that work with the intelligence at Hartford Hospital and the military associated them also with the Cole family involved with this. Families. There's a Bob Chase who's awaiting forensics, who according to confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There's Phil Colo. Phil Colo was involved with falsified police reports and methods of them speaking like they pretend other into records with various natures of courts, planting evidence in drugs and medicines crimes with various natures of child offenders, including sexual and women roles with that. And their motivations were how before they were caught, they were roles with them, with facts, predicate acts, falsified police reports, criminally foreign influence, uses of those names at their location since before they worked there. So when I was a kid, the wedding forensics had roles with the same names, and the witness protection program involved with criminally foreign influence uses of corners of streets. All exception, nature, and demonstration is the same thing. They want to pretend passions and emotions regarding when people do things bad, little kids, they want to leave out what came first. So we're going to examine this. They can't do that on paper legitimately. So one of the things they've been using is all along Route 3. People with mobile gas stations in Weathersfield and Rocky Hill sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm as strangers roles of people with wire crimes and identity theft, fraud, slander, and the intelligence community on my street and tied to them when I was a kid and where they lived before and after. There are people there are roles with Koreans and with Afghan families, and with these little tricks with facts, and leaking. They're leak. They know they leak. Always for Creek. Vaccines. You need a drink. Why? Because the hypernetic pure will stay there. Try. So it shows us native populations in modern countries are sickly distinctly prevented identity's voice from the modern country itself, too. Any leader, no matter how powerful they are going to get, they have to entertain locations, areas, and states, a whole bunch of individual groups, and together voicing for humanity, criminally formidable, tactically delusions wrong. And or that's what's forcing the leaders to self-value when they're used to themselves remotely while self-valuing the same thing. Differentially, what's worse, and the difference of that is also haven't been measured and maintained by preaching. You guys can't speak for logic. You guys jump into get involved with other people's business dishonestly, using all truths for lies. You bring your kids' names up. Here! I get on paper here. And say, oh, sorry to Judge Napolitano, Judging Freedom, and or with them. Get them on paper, please. Make sure the Connecticut Interbranch get on paper fast. Fast! Yeah, but don't forget, I still didn't get a response for the principal's confessions. The police form, state police, Connecticut, as with names with all other state police forms, Rhode Island and Rhode Island and Vermont has roles with the intelligence community here, and that's including the interbranch, the military. That's including people out of the state prison offices, state corrections offices. Has roles with a whole bunch of people from other parts of towns and other parts of my town through time. With identity theft, fraud, slanders, facts, predicate acts, roles with names on my street. It's not personal. You guys brought it up too. All substance nature demonstration of the same thing. So WFSB also attached me to fake words with themselves and with others. Hey! They've been doing it on off the campus with child offenders, on off their roles with shopping centers and malls, on off roles with uses of the right to lie, but they don't have a legitimate right to lie. They don't have legitimate roles with Korea. They don't have legitimate roles with Russia, with the fire departments, and with the Hartford Hospital involved with the names, with the businesses, and the overt criminal enterprises next to them, not legitimately police forms. Hey! Has something to do with their roles with those spots all along Hartford and all along Route 3, with the names in the background, with the excuses, with Judge Napoli. Make sure Judging Freedom and other online television judges, make sure we get a response for Connecticut Interbranch on paper now. Make sure you want to speak about my passions and emotions uses or your own. Make sure you do it on paper because you're fabricating audio and video every day. Every day. We're going to show you what we have to use online to force legitimacy. We're going to ferret out the rat mouth, fake integrity branch of the government, time collusions with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and worse, with the insidiousness of people A through Z. We're going to show remote uses of body dumping spots and of other natures of crime scenes and the names next to them, how remotely used are all investigators in their campuses. We're going to see the uses of the word mature. When people argue with themselves, we're going to watch what they've been doing consciously with their uses of the right to lie and what it has caused. So make sure they don't pretend they could have an election legitimately, either side. All right. Make sure I get them on paper. This is and don't forget what came first.